In today's tutorial video, I'm going to show you how to make this super cute floral boxy tote. Welcome to my channel. My name is Kim of ThelmaQuilts.com, and let's get to it. We have already cut out all of our pieces. So we have 2 straps here, and all these measurements will be in the pattern, so definitely go check that out. So we have our main cut out here, and this is the outside of the external panels of the tote, and then we also have the internal, like the lining and things like that over here. But anyway, so we have 2 pieces cut out and of the main body of our tote, and then we have our bottom and side pieces here. So for the main body, for the exterior main body that is, this is where we're going to put our applique pieces and fuse them on. So we're just going to move everything out of the way, and we're going to start assembling our applique. So like I said, this is the liner. I'm going to put it off to the side, and we're just going to start with one of the main pieces. So there's 2. So we're gonna start with this, and we're just gonna take our lint roller and just roll it over, because we wanna make sure that there's no pet hair or anything like that on it, because we want a really nice, good fusion. So we are using today for this project the Heat and Bond Ultra Hold, which means that we won't be sewing each individual applique piece down. We don't need to. We're just going to fuse it to the bag for this project. If you want to sew it down, I would use the Heat and Bond Light. So that does require you to sew it down. So I just went and I grabbed my legend. So this is the applique legend that comes in the pattern, and it shows you where to place your applique pieces. So we want to make sure that you always, depending on the pattern that is, you always want to leave a barrier around the perimeter of where the applique background. So in this case, it's 1/2 inch. Some patterns are up to 1 inch. It really depends. So anyway, for this one, it is 1/2 inch. And the tote bag goes along this direction, the long direction. So what we want to do is we're going to first half our background, and we're just going to crease it with our hands. You don't need to iron it or anything like that. Actually, I suggest not ironing it, because we just want a crease, and the crease will kind of act as a guide. So now that we have it halved, we're going to go the other direction as well. We're just going to line those creases up and be firm with the pressing. Just use the kind of like the heel of your hand, I guess, the palm of your hand, and push down. So then you can see the creases in our paper, or sorry, not our paper, I'm thinking of paper, in our fabric. So these marks act as a guide for when we are placing our applique pieces. We have 2 stacks of applique shapes, and that is because one is going to go on one panel and the other is going to go on the other. So I've already separated all of the applique pieces, and you'll notice that each of the applique pieces has a letter. So that's what we're going to use in order to arrange our applique on the background. So you can see that the B shape here, which is, we'll get it, this shape here is going to be centered on the lines of our background. Do you see that? So we have the points on the applique, or the background, right there. So that is the first one that we're going to lay down, and then this will be in the center, and it goes there, right? So this is the C, this is B. I'm just going to show you the legend one more time to give you an idea. So we're starting with the B, which is the background there, and I like to start in the center or wherever I have my lines, because that kind of like allows me to center everything the best I can. So that's why we're starting with the B shape, and then the C shape goes right on top. You see that? So that's what it's kind of gonna look like. So that's what we're gonna start with to begin with. And we're going to grab our glue stick. This is just a washable glue stick. And the reason I use the glue stick is because I like to tack everything down. You don't want to fuse it right away because the likelihood of you having to move it around is pretty great. So we don't want to fuse it, especially with the ultra hold, because it ain't coming off after you have fused it. So I like to set everything, tack everything down with a little bit of glue stick, and then if I don't like the way that I position something, or I just want to move it because it feels better in a certain location, then I can do that. I'm gonna peel the backing off, and the glue part obviously is the shiny part, and we're just going to use a little bit of glue, and we're just going to line up our applique shapes like that. So we have a line going down the center and the center across as well. And we're just gonna lay it down with our hands and give it a press, and then move on to our next piece, which is C. And you're gonna repeat this process for the other panel, the main panel in the back of the tote. If you only wanted to do one side of the tote, you could totally do that. It really depends on your preference. But if you want both, then I would do both. If you want just one side of the tote to have the design, then do that. It's all up to you. All right, so now we can just move on. You can move on to wherever you want. I kind of like working in quadrants, but I'm always looking at the guides to give me kind of a balance to the design. And remember, you never want to put any of your applique shape, regardless of the pattern, too close to the edge. That's because we're going to be sewing it down, right? So I like to keep at least a ½ inch all the way around. Some of my patterns require an inch. So, and that's because you're going to have to quilt it or whatever, but this particular pattern, the sizing isn't horribly important. It's important, but it's not going to make or break your design if it's a little off, because you can always trim things up. So don't stress about things. All right, so all of our shapes are lettered, and they all have they're all fused and ready to go, and they've been cut out. So we're just going to go around the shape, and I'm going to do the green. So I'm going to pull it over here, and I'm going to show you what we're going to do. I'm going to start with the G, D, E, and F that goes around the center piece. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to find those pieces. So we have E that goes over here, and G, and D. And come to think about it, right now, as I am throwing these on my background, I don't think I inverted or I mirrored the printout when I did this, the shapes. And it happens, and you know what? You're just gonna have to work backwards. It's fine. All right, so then we have F, if I could find that. All right, so now that we have those kind of in line, we're just going to flip them over and kind of see where we want them. So these are quite close. Do you see that? So it should look like that. And because nothing is underneath these vines, we can fuse them down after we have after we've kind of glued them down. So I'm gonna let you watch me work, because I cannot talk when I do this. It's impossible. I just get too involved in it. I really enjoy this. It's a lot of fun. So if you're new to Applique and you're new to my channel, definitely give this a chance, because it can be so much fun. All right, so now that we have this centered and we like it the way that it is, I'm gonna take it over to my iron and I'm gonna give it a press. Never swish your iron with applique. You won't love your life after that. So give it a press with a medium high heat, which is usually a setting of 5 or the wool setting on your iron, and you're going to set it for 8 seconds. So you're gonna go 8 seconds, lift, 8 seconds. Just like that. So I did want to say I started kind of assembling based on the legend, but as I suspected, I forgot to invert my image. So that would be mirroring. So mirroring is really important in order for placement. And this is actually a really good learning curve for anybody watching. So if you have forgotten to mirror your image, you're just going to have to also work backwards when you're placing your applique pieces. So for example, some of my shapes, or actually all of my shapes, are not in the right position. So if you can tell, like my L and my T shapes that kind of are a little bit more swishier, they are up in the left top and bottom right corners in the legend. Well, that is not the same on the actual background. So because I've had to mirror it, right? So if you have printed and mirrored and printed your template the way that it's supposed to be, and not what I accidentally did, because I do forget that occasionally, then you're gonna have to kind of work backwards. And that is what I'm doing right now. So what I'm doing is I'm working backwards. And if you can hear the roosters, I do live on a farm. So yeah, so I'm going to have to move these and just find a space that fits them. Remember, we want to make sure that we have like a 1/2 inch perimeter around everything, right? So we're just going to move them around a little bit. And that's fine. Remember, you're not aiming for perfection. This should be fun. And I actually really like the challenge of when I do print them off not correctly. So we are just going to work. So if you can tell, like if you're looking at the design and you feel a little bit overwhelmed and you have not mirrored it, you're just gonna look at how everything kind of like curls around, right? So here we're curling this way around. Do you see that? All the flowers are curling around in this direction, but because we didn't mirror it, we're going to curl around in this direction. So it'd be the opposite of, right? So yeah. And just look at the placement and see how you like it. So we know that we need to like move things around and adjust things. So this is the idea of what we've got going on here. And now we're just going to play with the design a little bit and make it your own. The legend is there to guide you, but I want this to be something that you're happy with and that you've made. So put your own spin on it a little bit and see what you come up with. So I am liking what's going on right here. I have space in this quadrant, so I can start removing the paper backing and just tacking it down with some glue. All right, because I like what's going on in this corner, I can remove the rest of the shapes if I want and go give this corner a press, but I'm just gonna continue on tacking everything down with glue and then just pressing it all at once. But if you find that that is like too much for you, then you can definitely do them in quarters. You're just gonna have to pay attention and make sure that everything is aligning as you go though. All right, so now that we have everything tacked down and we like the placement, we're gonna go take it over to our iron and give it a press. So remember that it is 8 seconds on a medium high heat with our iron. We are not gonna swoosh. So you literally press for 8 seconds and move on and continue that process until the entire motif is pressed. And then we are going to do exactly the same thing for the other side of the bag. I'm not gonna show you that again, but you can rewatch the section if you need to. So I'm gonna do that off of camera. And then once we have everything, all of our motifs are pressed and set and ready to go, we can start putting the batting on all of our pieces and then quilting it. All right, so we have just finished assembling our applique pieces on the second outer panel. So now that those are all set and ready to go, we can start quilting. So we're just going to quilt the external panels. So that is your sides, your bottom, and both of the applique pieces. So you're going to grab some batting and you're going to lay this on top of the batting, and then you're going to quilt it. So I'm going to quickly walk you through that process. So I have some scrap batting here, and we are just going to lay our panels. So you're going to have 2 side pieces, 2 of your applique backgrounds, and the bottom piece that we're going to quilt. You are not going to quilt the lining. So normally when I do a quilt, you sandwich the quilt. So you're going to have your backing, your batting, and then the quilt top where the design is. But on bag making, it is a little bit different. You do not want to quilt your lining. So we are going to start by basting our quilt top to the batting. And the batting absolutely has to be bigger than your the quilt top, okay? So we're just gonna cut around this, and we're going to leave room all the way around our quilt top, okay? And you're gonna do this for all of your external panel pieces. It's really important. I get this question a lot in my emails, and some people come at me for it, but they don't understand what quilting means. So I do suggest you watch a quilting video, and I do have one on my channel that you can go and watch. But it's really important that the batting and the backing, if we were doing backing for a regular quilt, that is larger than your quilt top. The quilt top is the motif or whatever is going to be externally seen. So it's really important to have that, because as you quilt something, it shrinks a little bit. It gets a little bit denser when you're quilting. So after we have done quilting this, we're going to just cut off the batting all the way around, and then we can start assembling our tote. So, but first we're going to base this. So for smaller projects like this, I really like using my glue stick. So what I like to do is I will take the quilt top, and we will add some glue to it. My glue stick is kind of drying out. I should have put the lid back on it. And then we're just going to be generous with the glue. And this is washable school glue as well. So if you're making quilts with it, it just washes out. It's awesome. I use this stuff on everything. I kind of like Frank's red hot sauce. You put that stuff on everything. I love glue sticks for this reason, and I use them a lot in my work. So we're just going to make sure that we've been generous with it. We've coated it pretty good. Then we're just going to move it out of the way for a split second and put our batting back down. And we're going to lay our quilt top on top. Just like that. You see that? You're going to make sure that this is not ever touching the side of the batting, because that's not fun to have to deal with later. And what I like to do is just, I like to give this, I don't know if it's like goes against the quilting police rules, but I like to give this just a really quick press. I'm not going to have it on high heat. Actually, I'm going to have it on low heat, and I'm just going to press it just a little bit, and it gets rid of all of those little like weird little lines from the glue, and it helps dry it as well. And I just like to do that just because it cleans it up. I know it's probably just me, but and then it lays nice and flat, and I'm just gonna straight line quilt this. So you could echo quilt these. I love echo quilting. Actually, I'm gonna grab you a piece and I'll show you. Okay, so this is a pouch pattern that I've done, and for this I've done echo quilting, and echo quilting just means that you're going around the shape. Isn't that pretty? I just love echo quilting. But for this piece, I am going to do a straight line quilting, which means that I'm literally going to quilt in lines. You could do a cross hatch, which is also a very classic quilting method as well. It's really pretty. So you would just go diagonal and then diagonal this way, or you could just go this way and then that way if you want to make it really simple. So there's lots of different ways to quilt. I'm gonna have a tutorial on all the different ways to quilt. I'm really excited to do that. I just need a little bit more time. But anyway, so now that this is kind of drying while we were talking, I'm just going to take it over to the iron. I'm just going to give it a quick press just to get rid of those little wrinkles that come from gluing. And then we're going to quilt it on our machine. You could hand quilt this as well. Hand quilting is one of my absolute favorite things to do, but I'm going to take this over to my machine. I'm going to straight line quilt it, and then we are literally going to just trim off the batting. We're not going to cut this at all unless I absolutely have to, but we don't want to take off any length at all if we can, you know, help it. So I'm going to take this over to the machine. I'm going to quilt it, and we're going to do the same for every piece. So I believe this, I can't remember which panel is what now. I think this is the bottom. Yeah, this is the bottom, and these are the sides. And we're going to do the same with those pieces as well. So we have one bottom. I cut two by accident, but anyway, we have one bottom and two sides, and we're also going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to quilt it the same way as we quilt this. So the batting, no lining, no backing, nothing like that, just the batting and the exterior piece, and we're going to quilt these pieces as well, and then we can start assembling our bag. Alright, so one more thing before I went to quilt it that I forgot to say is that I don't like to quilt over the motif. You can if you want. You could straight line quilt right over the motif if that's your thing, but that's not my thing. So what I like to do when I'm straight line quilting something like this is, like, I will quilt up to here, and then I will back stitch, and then I'll continue down the line doing that. I will start and stop my stitches, and I will always give it a back stitch when I start or stop if it's in here. You do not need to do that if it's at the very beginning. You don't need to back stitch there because you're going to cut it off anyway, right? So I just wanted to add that before I left you here to quilt on your own. But like I said, I have a full tutorial on how to do a lot of things like this, so definitely go check that out. So I'm just going to take this over to my iron and get rid of all these little waves that happen when we glue it and start the process. We have finished all of our quilting, and I've already squared up some of the pieces, and I left one so I can do it on camera to show you what I mean. So like I said, when you're quilting, some of the outside of your quilt top will distort and even shrink a little bit depending on the stitches that you use while you're quilting. So that is why we have the batting that is large. I get that question a lot, and I just want to make sure that you know what I mean by that. Okay, so we have this last panel that we're just going to square up, and literally what we're going to do is we're going to take our quilting ruler and we're just going to cut off the excess batting, and that's literally it. So we're just going to go around and cut off the batting. And if you are really frugal, you can take these little strips, well, bigger strips than that, I guess. I use them for my big quilt projects, but I will fuse them together with some interface, and I will continue using those on smaller projects. These ones are a little bit harder because they're so little and thin, so those ones will get composted because I use 100% cotton batting in all of my work, so they can be composted. All right, so now that everything has been squared up, I'm sorry if you can hear my dogs in the background, they're playing under the table. We can start assembling our pieces. Now that we have all of our panels trimmed up, we can start assembling our tote. So we're going to begin by assembling the outer panels, the exterior panels of our tote, and then we're going to do exactly the same thing with our liner. So we're going to start by, this is the bottom panel, and these are both of the main body panels, and then we also have the side panels as well. So these side panels are going to go, I know it's kind of off of camera, I'm doing my best to show you, but we're going to put each one of the side panels on the bottom panel like that. But we're going to start out by taking and sewing together the bottom with the main panels. So right sides together. So you're going to take and line up the panels. So the right sides are facing. And we're just going to line these up and pin them or clip them. I really like clips for bag making. And I apologize for my voice. I have come down with a cold, unfortunately, and I have a feeling it's going to stick around for a while, so I do apologize. Okay, and then we're just going to pin or clip these together and sew them. And we're going to do the same for the other side. So when I'm pinning, I like to pin, I'll do 2 pins on one side or something, and then I will go put a pin at the end, the opposite end, so that I make sure that my corners are matching, and then I'll go back and I will just pin the inside to make sure that everything is lined up correctly. So I'm going to go to my sewing machine, and with a, oh, it's nesting. My sewing machine's nesting there. That's not good. Anyway, so with a 1/4 inch seam, we're just going to sew all the way down. All of my patterns use a 1/4 inch seam because I'm a quilter, so that's what I like to use. So that's how I design all of the patterns, are with a 1/4 inch seam, unless I'm doing top stitching, and then that's kind of the one rule breaker, I guess, is top stitching. But anyway, so we're going to go and we're going to go sew that together, and we're going to do the same for the other panel, and I'll show you what it all looks like as we go. So after we have sewn on the one exterior main panel to the bottom, we're going to do the same to the other side. We're just going to line these up and sew them exactly the same way. Now we have the bottom and both of the motif panels, and now we can sew on the side panel. So I'm just going to turn everything so I can show you a little bit better. So now we want to sew on the side panels. So they go like this. Okay, do you see what's happening there? So we're just going to flip them so they're right sides together on either side, and we're going to clip and pin, or clip, sorry, and then sew the sides onto the bottom. Okay. So again, with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, we're just going to sew that, and we're going to do exactly the same to this other side panel here. At this stage, we should have something that looks like this. So we have our exterior panels with the motif, the bottom panel, and then the side panels. So that's what we should have. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to take and line up the side panels with the main panel, and we're going to clip it and pin it. So like I said, I always like to start at the top of the corner there, because that seems to be the trickiest when we're doing this. So I like to do it that way, but if you want to do it a different way, then you do whatever works for you. Maybe you have a better technique than I do. So I like to do that just so I know where my seams are going to be, and then I go back and I pin everything so I know that it's going to align properly. And I really do like these clips. I always share, because I get so many questions about the different things that I use, especially on my other channel. Oh, by the way, I have another channel. If you're into patchwork and patchwork quilting and things like that, and hand quilting and dyeing with natural dyes, go check out my other channel. It's Extra Quilts, and I teach a little bit of everything over there as well. All right, so we just flipped it over and everything is looking really good. Everything's aligning right. And if it doesn't, just finagle it a little bit, right? This is just going to be, actually a lot of you make gifts out of my patterns, which is really cool. I love that. Okay, so we should have something that kind of looks like that. I'm going to sew this section first, and then I'll clip the other ones, because I always knock off clips when I go to sew anything. So we're just gonna sew down here and down here, and I would back stitch these beginning end to end just to secure them really well, because we are making a bag, and then we're going to do the same for the other side. Great, so we have sewn the one side and it's looking really good, so it kind of looks like that. And now we can go and do the same to this other side. So again, I like starting to pin right there at the top. Make sure that everything's going to be aligned, because that is really important, that the top of your bag is aligned, because we are going to be adding the lining. So we're going to do exactly the same process for the lining, what I just showed you for the exterior of the bag. So I will let you watch me put that together, but I won't instruct it because I've already done that for you. So we're gonna finish pinning this side. And there we go. So once this is sewn, we'll have like a kind of a finished outer bag, right? You see what's going on here? Kind of getting an idea. Okay, so I'm gonna take this over to the machine and sew it up. Now we're gonna do exactly the same thing for our liner. So we have the bottom panel here. We have both of the main body panels on either side of it, like this. And then we also have the side panels that go up and down on the bottom panel. So I am just going to clip these all together and sew them just like we just did for the main body. So I've just finished sewing on all of our panels so they're all connected, and I did give them a press. I gave all of the seams a nice press so we're not fighting them when we go to do this next part. So again, we're going to do exactly the same thing. We're going to join the side panels to the main panel. And again, the way that I like to do that is I like to align the top edge of the panels first, and then I kind of pin backwards. And then I know that that is going to be all perfectly aligned. We're not going to have any like issues. So after we are done this, then we can start assembling the straps and the rest of the bag. Again, the lining should look just like our exterior panels that we have sewn on. So we have two identical pieces that are sewn the same way. So now we can make our straps and sew those in. So we are now ready to assemble our our straps and add them to the bag. So I made these off camera and I totally forgot to show you, but essentially what you're gonna wanna do is cut your, I'm just gonna use a scrap piece of fabric just to kind of show you how to do it. But what you wanna do is pretend that this is your strap, and you're first going to fold it in half, like so. And this is right side facing you. So if this was a print, for example, then the flowers would be showing, right? So you're going to you're going to half this and give it a press with your iron. And then what you want to do is unfold it so you can see that crease, right? And then what you want to do is you're going to take each side of your raw edges and you're going to fold them to that crease on both sides of the strap, like that. And then you're going to give that a press. And then you're going to fold it over one more time so all your raw edges are encased. And then you're going to top stitch all the way down here like that. So then your strap is nicely finished and no raw edges. Okay, so that's kind of a quick rundown of what the strap, you know, the directions are always in the pattern, but I just kind of wanted to give you a visual of what that looks like. So now that we have finished our liner and our outer and our straps are made, we can assemble the straps. So what you're going to do is you're going to grab a ruler and you're going to measure 3 inches from this side seam here. So you're just going to bunt it up like that, and you're going to mark 3 inches, right? And you're going to do the same exact thing on the other side. Like that. And then you're going to take your straps and put them inside the bag. So the raw edges are facing you, right? And the right side is inside the bag still. And without twisting your straps, you're going to drop them inside of the bag and you're going to line up your strap. So we drew our 3-inch mark here, right? Hopefully you can see that in camera, right? And then you're going to just line up the strap like that, and you're going to either pin it or clip it in place. And then without twisting the strap, you're going to do the same to the other side, and you're going to line up your strap to that mark. Around the inside of the bag here. There we go. And then you're going to clip it, and we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and we're going to sew across it a few times, like back and forth a few times, just to make sure that it's secure. And we're going to do the same for the other side. So I'm just going to do that now so I don't have to keep on coming back and forth. So again, it's 3 inches from the side seam. I'm just going to mark it. And again, on the other side. Oh, it's not marking very good. I don't know where my marker disappeared to. All right, and again, we're going to take our strap and just line it up with that mark. Sorry, I have a cold. And we're going to clip it. And again, we're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side, making sure that our strap inside is not twisted, okay? And the raw edges to raw edges are aligned like that. And then again, well, like I said, we're going to take it over to the sewing machine and go over these straps a couple of times to secure them. Our straps are installed, and we are on the last step of our bag construction. So what we want to do is turn our liner right side out like so, And I just like to pop the corners. It's just a habit of mine. I like a nice crisp corner. What I found that is really helpful is using chopsticks. I love chopsticks for popping corners. Okay, so now that that is done, we are going to slide. We're going to make sure that our straps are on the bottom of the bag, and we're going to take and put this inside of our bag. So our outside bag is wrong side facing you, and the liner is right sides facing the interior of the bag. So do you see that? This can be so confusing, so don't be hard on yourself. When I first started bag making, I was like, what? Okay, so see that our finished seams are together, right? So are facing each other. And what we're gonna do is we're just going to take and line up our seams like that. And we're going to clip it all the way around the bag. So I always like to start at the seams. Oh, see, I think I might have messed up there. Yeah, I did. So we want to make sure that the right seams are together. And then you're just going to clip it all the way around, and you're going to leave, well, I'll show you a trick actually, so you don't forget about the gap, because the gap is really important, because the gap is what we're going to use to turn our bag after we're done. So it's really important that those straps are out of the way and hanging down inside the bag, right? So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna sew right up into here, I think. I'm gonna go to the other side, and I'm going to pin these corners, these seams as well, because the seams are really important that they are properly aligned. So I always do the side seams, or the seams period, on anything really. And I like to, if you're not feeling too comfortable about it, just put more clips or more pins or whatever you need to do. Okay, so I'm gonna go back here because I was talking to you about this before I showed that. So what I'm going to do, so you can see the strap, right? I am going to leave a gap in between one of the straps, because that's how we're going to turn the bag. So I'm going to clip, and then I'm going to grab my needles to remind me not to sew in between the strap on one side of your bag. So I like to just put some pins just like this to remind me not to sew the entire perimeter of the bag. So that's a little trick when you're sewing, just so you don't forget, because I totally forget nearly every time. And then we can just clip around the rest of the bag. And I've done my clips. And if you want to use lots of clips, then by all means, use as many as you feel comfortable. Okay, so what we have, it looks like this, right? So if you're looking in the bag now, you see the raw edges of the lining, then you know you've done it right. And we've also left some pins right here to remind us not to sew along here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at this clip. I'm going to back stitch and sew all the way around to my, just past this clip before the needles or the pins that I've put here. I'm going to back stitch, and then we're going to turn the bag. So this is what the bag looks like so far. We have sewn around the perimeter of the bag, leaving a gap here, and I don't think I've left enough of a gap, but that's okay. You usually want 4 to 5 inches. So we're going to remove these pins, and then we're going to reach into the bag and turn it right side out. All right, so now that we have the bag turned, we're gonna reach in there and pop those corners out with our fingers or with a chopstick. I really like using a chopstick for this, but each to their own. So I like a nice crisp corner, as crisp as you can make it anyway. All right, so now that that is all in there, we can put the liner in, and we're going to close that gap, and then we're going to top stitch around the entire bag. And just shake it down in there and push it. Okay, so then I'm going to turn this portion right here, and I like to give this a press with my iron so it kind of behaves a little bit better. And then we're just gonna top stitch this down. We're gonna start by top stitching the hole, and then we're just gonna continue on for the entire perimeter of the bag. So okay, so we have just finished doing our top stitch around the entire bag, and when you're sewing that top stitch, make sure that your straps are facing this direction so you're not accidentally sewing them over. You don't want to do that because you're going to have to stitch rip it. But so make sure that when you're sewing that your straps are facing this direction inside of the machine while you're stitching. At this stage, the bag is technically done. So we've sewn everything together. It's looking really cute, but this last step is optional, but it does add more structure to your bag. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that all of the lining is properly in our bag, and we're gonna pop those corners really good. And then what we're gonna do is we're going to align our side seams the best we can, just like that, and we're going to clip it, and we're going to clip all the way down to the base of our bag. So we're just going to take and clip it along here. By doing this, it adds a lot of structure to the bag, and that's what we want for a boxy bag, right? So we're going to repeat this process for each one of the corners. And what I like to do, I like to match the top stitches with the quilting stitches that I already have, and that I used a 3.5 millimeter stitch length. So I'm going to do that along our corners as well, and I'm going to repeat that, like I said, for each one of the corners to give more structure to the bag. Additionally, if you want to use a fusible fleece, you can add that as well, and it will make your bag even more structured. But I really like using what I have, and cotton batting is what I use for the quilts, so that's what I use in my bags as well. Occasionally I'll use the fusible fleece. It does add more structure and it is really nice, but I'm just going to sew along each of the corners. We just finished doing the top stitching on all of the seams. I actually went ahead and I also did the bottom as well and the sides, and it's perfect. I really love how this turned out. You can find the pattern and other tutorials on my website at thelmaquilts.com. Like, comment, follow the channel for more, and we'll see you next time. Bye now.